Hello everybody, welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome back to the second last part of my 2025 player preview series. We're almost at the end. I've really enjoyed diving a little bit deeper into our players and some of the storylines that surround season 2025 for North Melbourne and the players involved. For those of you who haven't watched any of the previous player preview videos, that was a mouthful, previous player preview videos, the only one I really suggest you watch ahead of this video is my best 23 for 2025. The reason being is that video has formed the player preview series. In this video, the second last video of the series, will round out the side. So we're looking at the ruckman, the interchange bench, and the sub in this episode. And then the last episode will be based around players who are in the frame for discussion, those who haven't made the side, but I do expect to come into the side at some point throughout season 2025. I think it's been really interesting doing this series because I made my best 23 quite some time ago, and my opinion has sort of changed on how that side looks already. Now, in reality, there's a couple players who will already be missing, George Wardlaw being one. He was in my best 23, but he's injured and won't start in season 2025. I also don't know if my current best 23 is who I think will be in the best 23 by the end of the year. So I think it is something that I'll definitely revisit multiple times throughout this season. But if I can recommend anything to watch before this particular video, it is that best 23 for 2025 for North Melbourne. I'll leave the link in the description. Let's just get straight into it. This is quite a fascinating video that I've put together from my perspective anyway. I feel like a couple of the players and the storylines around these players maybe haven't been spoken about as much, and maybe will play a really big part in how our side looks heading into season 2025. So I'm excited to share with you what I've found. Let's just get straight into it. Let's start off with our number one ruckman. He probably should have been the All-Australian ruckman in season 2024, finished top 3 in the best and fairest. I'm obviously talking about Tristan Xerri, and what an amazing season 2024 was for him. I cannot lie, I had a lot of concerns at the end of season 2023 when Todd Goldstein left to go to Essendon, and we were looking at Tristan Xerri and thinking, you're going to be our number one ruckman for season 2024. I don't know how I feel about that. I felt really insecure. I didn't know if I could trust him to really step up to the plate. I had probably not seen the potential that a lot of other people did, and I'm so happy that he just surprised me in the way that he did. He obviously had an outstanding season 2024. What makes the jump so impressive is not just the improvement in the ruck itself, but he kind of moved to become a complete player. His marking was really reliable. It's something we really needed from him, I think, and something we were kind of crying out for. His contested marking, especially in the forward half of the ground, was excellent. He did come and kick a few goals. He bobbed up and kicked a few goals when we needed him to. He's a really physical presence. He really threw himself at just about every contest. His tackling pressure was relentless. He was also clearing the ball really well himself out of the ruck. So it was sort of that real shift for Xerri, in my opinion, from going from just a ruckman to this complete package in season 2024, and I expect him to just get better in 2025. Signed a big contract midway through last season, so he's locked in, he's committed to North. I guess on reflection, maybe the departure of Goldstein was the best thing that happened for him, and obviously it was. In hindsight, it's a great thing, and had you told me that at the end of season 2023, that 12 to 15 months later we'd be sitting here saying, how did he miss the All-Australian? And he's the best thing that's really happened to our side, and one of the most incredible turnarounds within a season. But potentially the benefit of Goldstein leaving for Xerri is that he kind of could just come into his own. He could kind of become his own player. He didn't have Goldie sort of hanging over his head. And I do know that in round 1 in season 2023, we did start with Xerri as our number one ruck. Goldstein didn't play, and unfortunately he injured himself and missed majority of the rest of that season. But I think that the presence of Goldie still being there and being around the club maybe was to Xerri's detriment. So for Goldstein to move on and for Xerri just to sort of own the position and make it his own, I think has been awesome, and clearly it's been a massive benefit to the side. He is a player that has been able to stand up in crucial moments for us time and time again. He's always contributed in one way or the other, and we know that maybe the traditional ruck role is kind of dead and there maybe isn't such a need for it the way that there was however many years ago, but for him to then acknowledge that and move into being more of a complete player and having a real impact around the ground has been a real rewarding thing, I think, for us. I think that's what we really needed from him. We really needed him to take that next step up, and he has. And I think that has unlocked so many opportunities for us. I think this season, what I want to see from him now is that next step up once again. He's had a year in the ruck of being our number one ruckman. I think now it's time for him to be able to really take 90 to 95% of ruck contests. We know the durability and the stamina that Todd Goldstein had. He would just ruck on his own week in, week out for a decade. He didn't really miss much footy in his time at North either. He was so reliable, and I think that's now what we need to see from Xerri. If he can hit that level where we don't need a second ruckman and we can just have someone like a Jack Darling pinch hitting in the ruck, which I'll get to in a minute, then it probably unlocks a lot of opportunities for our side at the selection table. Maybe it does allow for the lack of someone like Dersma to come into the side, and Teakle doesn't play. It's a bit of a spoiler alert to what I'm about to talk about, but maybe that's how we look heading into season 2025. I think the key now for us to be able to unlock, like I said, more opportunities and more flexibility at selection table and try different things is him having the stamina and having the ability to ruck majority of the game on his own and just come off for a spell when needed or rest in the forward line when needed. So I think that will still come. We know with big men, they do take a bit more time to develop. So I do trust the trajectory that he is on with his career, that he can get there. And let's just hope that he does in 2025. It'll really, really be a big thing for North if he can get there. The next player I want to talk about is Brynn Teakle. And I find this storyline a very, very interesting one heading into season 2025. And maybe something that hasn't been spoken about as much as I would have thought. Now, heading into the preseason, I was of the opinion that Brynn Teakle has got one of the biggest opportunities within this side to really stamp himself on the side. We last season went in with our forward line in the second half of the season, that three-prong forward line, and it worked so well. We had Larky, we had Teakle, and then we had Toby Pink playing more of that negating tall forward, defensive tall forward role. This year, there's something a little bit different. So obviously with the addition of Jack Darling, that's a second key forward, a genuine key forward to play alongside Larky and to support him. And then Brynn Teakle has the opportunity to come in as that third tall / ruck sort of role. He can have a full preseason under his belt at North. Obviously, he came in the mid-season draft last year. He actually didn't miss a game. So he made his debut for North against Collingwood in round 14. He played every game after that for North. He contributed in front of goals. He's a really good set of hands. I think there is a real opportunity for him there if he can take it and if he can really develop as a player and really contribute in the way we need him to. The flip side of that is the whispers that I've heard coming from preseason training and match simulations is that Darling is chopping out Xerri in the ruck in the A side, which to me says that maybe Brynn Teakle has been pushed out and potentially won't play, at least won't start in season 2025. Would I play him? Yeah, I probably would still play him initially, like I said before with Xerri, maybe until Sherry's at a point where we know he can ruck games just about on his own and then have someone like Darling come into the ruck and give him a bit of a break and alleviate him a little bit as needed. But right now I'd probably go with Teakle, and I'd really like to see how he sort of developed with a full preseason under his belt. He's a little bit older. I think he's 25, which we know big men do take a bit longer to develop. So maybe he's kind of hitting his prime and hitting his sweet spot as a ruckman or as a key forward for us. So I think this is going to be a really, really fascinating one to watch. It's going to be interesting to see how Darling's form is in front of goal, how he goes in terms of his body and his fitness, and then how he goes chopping out Xerri, how Xerri goes in terms of his fitness and his endurance throughout a game and how much of a break that he needs. I know that my decision to put Brynn Teakle in my best 23 contradicts where I might be leaning towards now, in that I'd love to potentially have Darling pinch hit in the ruck for Xerri. Xerri can ruck most of the game on his own, and then someone like a Dersma gets his opportunity to come into the side and show us what he's got. And I understand that probably contradicts where I had Teakle initially. I just think that, again, it's going back to what I just said about Tristan Xerri. It unlocks a bit of flexibility at the selection table. We can go with Teakle as a third tall if we want to, or we can play Dersma if we want to. We're not necessarily locked into something because it's a need that we have. I'd rather that need be fulfilled with one player if we can, and it's something small. I'm not asking Xerri to do a million things. It's for Xerri to be able to ruck most of the game and then have a darling pinch hit him in the ruck. That's kind of all I'm asking for at this stage, which isn't really that outrageous, I wouldn't have thought. So then it allows someone like a Dersma to come in, or if we want to play Teakle, like I said, we can still play him. It's just having those options, and I think right now we're at a point where we've got so much talent in this side that it's really about figuring out what is the right balance to take us forward when we can start to push up the ladder and we do start pushing towards finals. So that's kind of where I see it at the moment. I will go with Teakle for now because we haven't seen Xerri in a match yet, in a proper match, even in a practice match. It's just been simulation at the moment, intra-club sort of stuff. But when we do move later on in February and then obviously closer to the season starting, it'll be more obvious as to where he's at and then where Brynn Teakle fits in this side. But right now I'm going to back my decision to pick Brynn Teakle and have him in our best 23 for this season. The next player I want to talk about is Riley Hardeman, and I think all of us have a player, an out of the box, let's call it, player that we're super bullish on, maybe a name that isn't so commonly thrown around amongst media and amongst mainstream fans, but I'm really bullish on Riley Hardeman and I'm really excited on his potential and what he might be able to do in season 2025. Just the 3 games last season, but I really liked what I did see from him. I just think with a little bit more time, a little bit more development, he should be able to make a massive impact for us down the track in our side. He does play in defense, however, he has been training on the wing as well in the new year, and I think that could be a really interesting move as well. In my side, I've got Bailey Scott on one wing and I've got Colby McKercher on the other, but I don't think that second wing position has been locked down. We tried Curtis Taylor there last season. Obviously, it didn't work. He's no longer at the club. Eddie Ford has run up and down that wing, and I actually really like Eddie Ford on the wing, and I think that could be something that we look to go for. We also had Dylan Stevens, who's had a couple of nice moments last season, but didn't probably do enough to cement himself on this side. I really like Riley Hardeman. Like I said, this is really just a personal one for me. He's also gone away and put on a ton of size in the off-season. He's come back in the preseason. He's looking great. So maybe we play him down back. Maybe we play him on the wing. I don't think it's completely ludicrous to suggest that he could be in the frame for selection for round 1. I think he just adds something a little bit different. He's really exciting. He's quite dynamic. And I think, again, he's got that versatility where he can float between spots. It unlocks the flexibility. It unlocks potential for us and unlocks multiple different looks in a side within a game, not just from week to week, but within a game. We can shuffle the magnets. So I really like Riley, and I really think that he's one to watch for season 2025, and I definitely am bullish on what he can do and where he can go and where he can take us. So my out-of-the-box player, and one I put on the bench that maybe not everyone would have had, is Riley Hardeman. Rounding out my bench is Finn O'Sullivan, obviously taken with pick 2 in last year's draft. In my opinion, we just let him straight into the side from the get-go, give him a 5 to 10 game period, just see what he can do. I also don't think that he will go down back the same way that Cheese and Colby did in their first seasons. I think he goes straight into the midfield. He seems like he's absolutely ready to go. He's played with bigger bodies previously. He gives us a lot of flexibility. There's that word again. Excited's been the word previously. Flexibility is the word for today, but he really does. He can play inside. He can play on the outside as well. He's super classy. He's an incredible kick. Apparently disposal by foot is just 10 out of 10, which is something this side needs desperately. There's already been a lot of similarities spoken about between him and LDU, and we know what a superstar LDU is. I really, really think that Finn O'Sullivan is an important element to us moving forward as a group, particularly with the absence of George. I think it really does open up the doors, maybe not necessarily an exact like-for-like player in terms of their strengths and their skill set and the key point of difference they would bring to the side, but that position opens up and Finn O'Sullivan will pretty much play wherever we need him to. He seems like that kind of guy, seems like that kind of player. So in my mind, he comes in, he starts round 1. I know a lot of people will maybe think, let's just put him in the reserves for a little bit, let him develop a little bit further, just get a few games under his belt before we throw him in. I think he's up for the challenge. He seems to have a really level head on his shoulders. He has a really great approach to his training by all reports. So I don't see why we wouldn't just give him a go straight off the bat, especially if there's a spot available for him. I put him on the bench. I really like Finn O'Sullivan. I really like the prospect of him and what he could do for this side, both now and moving forward. So I don't see why not. I think we just give him a go and see what happens. And finally, the sub in my best 23 for season 2025 is Zach Fisher. I don't know what season 2025 holds for Zach Fisher, if I'm completely honest. He had a good season in defense last year. It wasn't anything out of this world. He did miss a patch of footy due to injury. I think his ability to find the ball and hunt the ball is great, but then sometimes under pressure, his disposal does let us down. And when you're clearing the ball out of defense, you really need it to be centimetre perfect. With the recruitment of Caleb Daniel, and I've spoken about this a few times before, my mind is automatically gone to, well, what does that mean for Fish? And I do think the depth is really important, and I think it is really good to have guys like this waiting in the wings. He can play back and forward, which is what I do like about Zach Fisher, but I think long-term the best opportunity for him, I see breaking back into this side, is to go up forward. He played 106 games at Carlton. He kicked 53 goals. It's a pretty good return. We would obviously be looking for something like that from a small forward, maybe a little bit more goals coming from him, but considering we haven't really tried him much up forward, it could just be a good start to see how he goes and where he fits in. We so desperately need to fill that small forward role, and Zach Fisher is probably not in the best, well, I put him on as my sub, but a lot of people might not even have him in their best 23 at this stage. So I think realistically that could be a really, really good way for him to break back into the side. Like I said, it fills a need for us, but also there's a motivator there for him to get back into the side. Otherwise, I just don't know where he lands. I mean, I think as a sub, he could be a really, really good option. He's versatile. Like I said, he gives us a different look down back. He gives us maybe an option up forward, but I guess time will only tell with Fish. I'm not really sure where he lands. I'm not really sure where the opportunity lies for him. And if he can't re-tap into that forward craft that he did show a little bit at Carlton, then like I said, I don't know where he fits, and I'd like a world where we could fit him into the side, but I also think that's got to be conditional if he's going down back. That disposal out of our defensive 50 probably needs to be a little bit cleaner for mine. We really, really need to find a way to alleviate pressure off our defense as much as possible, and obviously clean disposal out of the back line is exactly the way to do that. And we know Caleb Daniel is one of the best executors in the game by foot in particular, and he's a really good decision maker under pressure. He's always really cool, calm and collected, and you really trust him. So that probably leaves Fish on the outer, in the back line anyway at this stage. I'd like to see him up forward. I think it'd be a really, really good option. It's something we haven't really tried before, and I would really, really like to see what he could do. Otherwise, I don't know exactly where he fits into the side moving forward. Anyway, you guys, we finally made it. We have finally spoken about every single player in my best 23 for season 2025. Let me know what you think about our ruckman and who you've got on your interchange bench as the sub and the players mentioned in this video. Leave all of your thoughts in the comments down below. If you liked this series, if you like the content coming from Kanga TV at the moment, please subscribe. It will really help me being able to share the North Melbourne 2025 journey with you all. We are getting closer and closer to footy, and I'm getting so excited. I'm so ready. You guys know I was ready in January, but the more that the footy news starts to take over the airways, the more I'm getting ready for the season to start. Let's continue the conversation as well over on socials. We are Kanga TV Show on Instagram, Facebook, X, and you can also send me an email if you have anything you want to say, kangatvshow@gmail.com. Caps coming soon, hopefully in the next week or so. Pre-orders will open. I will keep you up to date all across socials and on the channel as well. Anyway, guys, that's all. I'll see you in my next video.